Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Yes, Raghuramji, we can start.
Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I was feeling very strange because uh, somehow when I perceive the things, it gives a different kind of a approach, meaning. What normally people, when they try to present it, it's a little different from that. But I seem more convinced about the way that I look at the things. Like, for example, in this Mandukya Upanishad also, there is so much of an effort is being put to establish that the whole thing comes from one simple source. And that's what is Advaita. The source is one and the same thing. There are no two sources. Dvaita is not there from the source point of view. And somebody who experiences that reality, we can't deny it. Science also comes to the same reality, and common sense also feels the same thing. It comes from the same source. Like, for example, very simple perception that we see is that day and night, they are not two separate things. When the sun goes down, it is night. Sun comes up, it is day. Just because the movement of the sun. Now, particularly today, when we are going across the globe, then you see that from here to America, when I travel, I was all the time in the daytime only. Even if I travel for about 30 hours, 40 hours, I'm still in the day only. Because that earth moves that way. That is a simple idea. So now we have that the day and night, they are not two separate things. Same way, we see that our own experience, good and bad, are also not two separate things. They belong to the same. Somebody is good all the time in some area, something like that, but suddenly somebody becomes bad. He himself becomes bad. They are not two separate things. Like, for example, a beautiful example we have, a very classical example that created by Kejriwal. When he was with Anna Hazare, he was such a nice person. He was good. And really, he wanted telling all those things against every corruption, this, that, and all that. Even Anna Hazare believed him. At the moment he get the job, finished. Now you see that he's full of scams, nothing else. So good has started to become bad. So in that sense, that this is something which is there in the nature itself. That's things keep changing. Now, of all these changes, the biggest change that we could think of is, and manifest reality becomes the manifest. So Brahman is unmanifest, and the manifest world is there. That's what in 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita gives us an idea. That is what is Shara Purusha. This is Akshara Purusha. This is Kshara Purusha. Both these things are Purusha only. But what includes both these things, he calls it as Purushottama. I like that concept. That's the concept, extraordinary concept. Why he calls it as Purusha is that unending. That's why it is continuous chain that is there, Kshara, is also something which is unending. And Akshara Purusha, it's like a vast sky, unending. So both these things are unending, both these things are there. But there is only one single origin from which everything comes up. That's what is Purushottama. And he says that what is that we have to learn the application. This is Swami Dayananda Saraswati very nicely said that what is there in the Anubhava experience is only becomes a Shastra. What is not in Anubhava cannot become a Shastra. I cannot give a Shastra of a bird which has got elephant legs and all those things and a trunk and all that. There's a bird which is flying in the sky. It's an imagination. It doesn't have a reality. It's not an experience. So, what is that kind of a bird that you call it? I have no name for that because object is not there. Object is not there so that we don't have name for that. Or if it is a student, if it is a children comic story, then I give a name for that. It doesn't matter. But it is limited to that book only. Child outgrow that book, finish. That's over. So like that whatever that is their existence has got Nama Rupa. In fact, the very beautifully said that what is Tat, Tattvamasi. And in the Shveta Upanishad, it comes Tattvamasi. The idea Tat is actually Asti, Bhati, and Priyam, Nama, Rupa. These are the 5 things he says. Asti, Bhati, Priya represents the Brahman, or that existence, knowledge, and bliss, whereas Nama, Rupa represents the manifest world. And he says all these things is supposed to be Tat. Tat Tvamasi. Tvamasi, you alone are the both these things. See, this is an inclusive kind of a looking at the thing. I like that idea. And that is something which is useful. Very useful because basically that we don't reject the world outside, but it has got Nama Rupa is Jagat. Jagat Nama Rupa, I give, like for example, in a comic book, when I have that kind of an object, it's limited to the comic book usage. Similarly, I see something in my dream. My dream is also like a comic book. And there also is something, and that's limited to the dream. This has nothing to do with the reality. But the wakeful world is there. It has several things. It is limited to this wakeful world. I don't have to interface these things. This is what Mandukya Upanishad says. Vaishvanara is the wakeful world. You are the Vaishvanara. You experience that. Taijasa is the dream world. That you experience that Taijasa. That's a different thing. So like that, but you are somebody behind all these things getting an experience. So you are passing through all these things. Therefore, that you are Turiya. But this is what is intellectual thing. Is there a way that I can experience that Turiya as an experience? Which is very important because basically when the Upanishad sage is saying something, it's out of experience he's saying that. I am that. Nanta pragyam na vahi pragyam no bhayata pragyam na pragyam na pragyam, etc. etc. Prapanchopashamam shantam shivam advaitam chaturtham manyante satma sacha nigreha. This is what is the intellectual thing that is he said. But somebody who experienced said, I am Atma Brahma. That means this Atman itself is Brahman. Out of experience, he said it. He is not convincing anybody else. Now, when I look at that, can I experience that? We have that experience? We all have that experience. So these are the 2 things that are there. Advaita is a philosophy. Advaita is an experience. Philosophy is fine. Philosophy is accepted. Even science accepts it. But that's only philosophy that is there. But in the real life that we require have the importance of Dvaita. So it's not to reject this. Therefore, that they call this as Maya, Mithya, and this doesn't exist, etc., etc. And they compare it with the dream, saying that dream does not exist, so therefore this does not exist. It's only just comparing. But we don't have to reject this. And unfortunately, there's a lot of fight that goes on between these Dvaitins and Advaitins and Visishtadvaitin. I am right, and establish all those things. That's why Gaudapada writes all these 100 sutras to show that how to establish supremacy of Advaita. We don't have to establish the supremacy of Advaita. One who is experiencing the state of Advaita, for him there is nothing else exists. For her there is nothing else exists. He is just there or she is just there. Sadashiva Brahmendra was supposed to be like that. Similarly, in the Vedas, the Raikva story is there. Raikva was supposed to be like that. Similarly, in fact, even Raman Maharshi was at that time, when he was in that supreme experience state, he was like that. So that's something which is experientiable. That means there's one, I can identify myself with the consciousness, And actually, that is supposed to be the purpose of sadhana. And the glimpse is not there. Glimpse is there for us here and there. That's why it is something which is there important. Ramakrishna gave that example saying that when he went into that Nirvikal Pasthiti, asked him, what is that your experience at that? The same experience when I was 7 years old, I got it. By chance that I got it. And Patanjali also explained that. This you can get by Manimantra Aushadebhya. This can you can get by all these things. Sometimes it can happen accidentally also. Or with some drug you can do it. He says that Aushadhi, that means some drug it can help you. Some chemical can help you. Like that he says that. But only thing is being, and that's being tried also these days by several people who are doing experiments with these drugs. See, they give you the drug, go through that experience. And this is their experience like that. We had in our culture also that, particularly in North India, South India, we don't do that. But North India, it was very famous that during the holy day that we give bhang. Everybody drinks bhang. And the experience of bhang that you get is something which is like you are in the outside, out of the world. There is nothing that you reject. Everything is acceptable. One Advaita Sthiti that you experience. But as long as the bhang influence is there, you are there. But otherwise, you come out of it. And this is, and that bhang is given as the Shiva's drink. That's how it is given as the extraordinary. uh, Fine. But the beauty of that bhang is that you don't get addicted to it. It's just a one or two experiences during that holy time. And afterwards, you come out of it. Once again, you look for another holy to get that kind of an experience. Before that, people don't abuse that. So that is a simple caution that we need to have that. So that experience of Advaita sthiti is there once in a while for all of us, consciously that we go to that state. And that's a state where you see that you are free from all the worries, anxieties, negativities, everything is dropped, and then you are beautiful in that. And that's where basically LSD was supposed to give that. That is lysergic acid. And that became like an addiction for the Western world. Our Shastras have said that, and whatever that the substance that is there from which LSD is made is also something which is like herbal substance, which Shastras talked about it. It's nothing different. So, but whereas here, one problem when logistically you try to, logically that you try to establish that, then what happens with us is we have to reject the other things and to establish this. Others are wrong, therefore I'm right. So this is what is the attempt I constantly see that Advaitas, Advaita philosophy try to undermine the Dvaita philosophy. And another important aspect is that most of the people have presented the Dvaita also as if there is some God sitting there trying to bestow his grace. And you go to the God because that God fulfills your desires, your requirements. God is like a great servant for you. That's what the way people take it and explain to that. You go to the God and pray for the God to get the benefits, then God will give you the benefit. But nobody clearly said that you are going to the God not for the benefit, but out of love you go to the God. Only person who said that was Vivekananda, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa to Vivekananda. Ramakrishna said to Vivekananda, Vivekananda comes to Ramakrishna says, Father died and the whole house is in debts and all those things. He says that, can you pray to Devi, Kali, so that Kali can give me some job or something like that? Ramakrishna said, yeah, why don't you go to Kali temple? I'm a little lazy, I can't walk there, but you go there, I tell her to give you that. Then he goes all the way to Kali temple, Vivekananda, Naren, comes back. Ramakrishna looks at him, dull face, he comes back. He said, did you ask? He said, no. Why? I didn't feel like asking. Hey, what a fool you are. Mother is waiting for you. Go and ask her. And then he goes there. And then this time he comes joyfully, jumping with joy. Did you ask? He said, yes. What did you ask? He said, pure love. See that all other things drop off, only love is there. So that love, go to the God out of love, not for a demand list. So only Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that way. So it is your love for God is important rather than your desires are things like somebody who's all powerful, almighty, he can solve all your problems. That's not even an issue. In fact, today, whatever that he has given, that's good enough. In fact, the whole approach of Bhakti Yoga is different from what people normally understood. The way that I understand is that you have love, enrich your love in such a way that you see the divinity. You see the divinity. If you have that love enriched, you see the divinity. Same temple, same image, two people go there. Somebody with this enhanced love, he goes there. You see the God there in the image. Whereas a person who may be highly supposed to be a religious person, but if he does not have that feeling, he goes there. He doesn't see the God there. For him, the stone, what he sees is the stone. You can see the stone, you can see the God. Both these things are options in front of you. There was one very great, this Hare Krishna organization. It's not ISKCON, another parallel organization. And a secretary for that is supposed to be a very great spiritual person. I happened to, he was there with me. We were together in the guest house in Udupi. Udupi is supposed to be South Vrindavan. That means Krishna's place, Udupi Krishna. And this man was my next door neighbor. And then he comes to me and said, Raghuji, I don't know how they pray this Krishna, Lord Krishna here. I said, why? What happened? Now North India, Krishna is so wonderful. It's like white stone. I said, North India has a lot of this soapstone and marble. Therefore, they made a nice, wonderful Krishna image out of it. Whereas South India, the most stable stone is granite. So we made the Krishna out of black Krishna. I don't know how can I accept Krishna to be black. See, he's seeing only the stone, not the Krishna out of it. How many people go there and see the Krishna there? If you have love, you can see Krishna. If you don't have love, you can see the stone. So therefore, anybody who criticizes is looking at it from the intellect point of view, not from the feeling point of view, the emotion point of view. That's what is the power of emotion that we have, power of love that we have. That's what even Kalidasa says in Shakuntalam. Kanapi swasutam sarojaneneti ahuyate premataha. The child has a squint eye and all those things, and the mother, because the mother, when looks at the child, she looks at the child, says that how beautiful the child's eyes are. Each one is like a lotus leaf. They may be squint, but then they're like lotus leaf. It's mother's perception. Kanapi swasutam sarojaneneti. So naturally, what we need to look at the world is out of love, out of this bhavana. When you look at that, that's what is the idea of bhava. Then you see the divinity. That is the idea of bhakti yoga. That's the idea of following the divinity. God is not that we are looking for giving us the benefit. He has already given us so much that today I am sitting here and talking to you because of His grace, because of God's grace. When I look at all these things with that feeling that I have, that means to say I'm accepting God. So it's not intellectual thing, but it is a bhavana. That's what is going to give. Unfortunately, what happened, a lot of these discussions that I saw in the fourth chapter of Mandukya Karika is based on this idea that God is somebody sitting there, people go there to ask for his favor, and then whether he's there a favor or not, whether he gives or not, they laugh at it. So they make fun of it and then say, all right, okay, that somehow that he does it, it also got its place, but secondary place. Ultimately, he also has to accept the Advaita philosophy. So therefore, that I mean, a person who is a Dvaitin or a person who is a Bhakta is not looking for anybody's approval. In fact, on the other hand, Advaita philosopher looks for approval. That's why he is arguing. Whereas a Bhakta himself has dissolved his ego. He is nobody. Where is the question of approval of somebody? I don't want any approval. So when we look at that way, that the whole logic to establish Advaita philosophy, the struggle that he does for almost like 100 sutras, is nothing but it is futile in the sense that even a simple question, if you think of Advaita, the moment you say you are somebody who is established in Advaita, where is the other? The other itself is not there. Advaita means the other is not there. Then who do you argue? Where do you argue with? What are you arguing about? And that you call it as Turiya. The same thing is God, same thing as Brahman, same thing as Jivatma. All these things are the same thing. That's why for such a person who does look at all these things as one single individual entity, for him there is no problem at all. But at the same time, great advantage of such a person is that as much as he looks at the Turiya Sthiti or Brahma as something which is Brahman, as something which is extra Brihat, that's God, the same thing as this world, his manifestation is also God. That's why many people have expressed that the creator is great, extraordinary because of his creation. They say this creation is horrible, but creator is great. Then where is the question of creator when the creation itself is horrible? He is not great. Like you go to an artist, a painter, and say that, you are a very great painter, but the painting you have done is horrible. That's not the way it is. Painter is because of his painting. The divinity is because of the whole creation that is there. That's why he says. But here there are two separate things that are there is that Nama Rupa is there in the Jagat, whereas Asti Bhati Preeti Priyam, that's what is there. And that Asti Bhati Priyam is what is called as the idea of Sat Chit Ananda. Asti is Sat, Chit is Bhati, and Ananda is Priyam. So these three things are associated with that. There's one point that I would like to bring about. I'll not go into the details of all the sutras that are there, but one point I would like to bring about is that the Advaita Sthiti, like the way that one Brahman from which everything comes up, Advaita is also used as Ajati. Ajati is unborn. That means to say, birth has always the death, going through all this process of five. Five steps are there. That means Jayate, Vartate, Uparmate, Apakshiyate, Mriyate. These are the five steps that are there. Jayate, Vardhate, grows. You see that the plant, it just comes up, Vardhate, it grows, and then it becomes mature, Apakshiyate, and then Uparamate, then it goes back, goes down, and then Mriyate, death. Whatever is born is death. This is what Krishna also said, Jatasya hi dhruva mrityuhu. So, what is this world that you see is something which is, that's why it is called a Jagat. Gachati iti Jagat. Jayati Gachati Jagat. That way, basically, it goes through this principle. This is its nature. Brahman is not part of it. Brahman does not have that aspect of it. That's why there is no beginning of it. And again, we have Shastra's confirmation about saying that all the other things are born vayo, that's what we say, the mantras that, upon yajnana kalpitam, vyano yajnana kalpitam, prano yajnana kalpitam, all these things are born and then they end. That is there, kalpita. Whereas yajno yajnana kalpita, yajna does not have any origin by it. It is by itself. It is there. Again and again, we have that kindness. expression saying that. Now, how to understand that? The model that I could think of is that what we call it as consciousness essentially has these two qualities. One is called as the feeling and the freedom. The freedom is supposed to be the asti, and then feeling is bhati. These are the two things. But unfortunately, consciousness does not have the third component, which chetana has it. That's why it is always better to use the word chetana rather than consciousness. But in English language, you don't have better word. Everybody use consciousness. I will say consciousness plus preeti, priyam. That's what is the bliss aspect of it. That makes the chetana. So we say our nature itself is these three things: asti, bhati, priyam. And that in a simple way, we can see that I am there in this body as long as that asti is there. That means to say chetana is there in this. The moment chetana goes away, this body is like any other part of five elements. It just goes to five elements. Dispose it off. It doesn't matter to me because I'm not there anymore. Whether you bury it or burn it or throw it away or gone into the birds, because various religions have various ways that they have done it. It's okay. Anything is okay because I'm not there anywhere. If you are convinced about that, that means that is the only time when you feel that you are identified with the turiya sthiti. You are not in the manifest world outside. So this body shines because that there is asti on that, bhati in that, and also there is one thing called as priyam. These three things are there, and which has got this nama and rupa. First of all, rupa is there, then nama comes. So that's what is the world. And this is also another beautiful concept. Let me reiterate again that anything that is there in this world, it makes sense to you. You can interact with that, you can manage with that. Moment you give a name to it. Name is what you give it, whereas object is that what exists, what you want to convey. So what you want to convey is called as what's your purpose and what you give the name. That's what is called as the name is something what you give. Abhidhana. And what is that your dhyaya, your purpose is, abhidhyaya, is the object. It can be any object like a bottle or a glass or something like that, or to a human being, such so and so. The person I mean, but then I have given a word to that. Universally, that a word is accepted so that you all resonate to that word. So, Rupam and Nama, Rupa and Nama belongs to the world outside. Asti Bhati Priyam belongs to the divinity. So therefore, that Priyam aspect that is there within you, that's what is called as the Bhavan aspect is divinities. As much as existence aspect is the divinity, and then the Chaitanya aspect, that's what is divinity we have. So we are that. The more and more that you identify with that Asti Bhati Priyam, that means you are identifying yourself with the Turiya, and the moment you are in Nama Rupa, that's what is the world outside. It is coming and going. Identify as long as it is there. Like, for example, however much you know about the dream is not real from the point of view of wakeful state, still you dream. Dream still it is there. And then you get the experience of the dream in the dream. And then you especially take that role to play the experience of the dreamer. That's what is Tejasa. The Jagrata sthiti is what is called as Vaishwanara and Taijasa. You take the position of Taijasa so that you experience the dream state. Dream also has one other another of you. So that means you become two within the dream. One is the one who sees the dream, other is a participant in the dream. But very often what happens is we forget about that. We become the participant of the dream. It's very true. To be a witness of the dream is very difficult. That's what Carlo Castaneda says. Don Juan says that when the dream becomes a dreaming, that means to say you are the one who is dreaming, and dream is that what you watch, then you are realized. That means you identify yourself with the Turiya. You are not part of the dream, you are Turiya. So the whole idea is that you identify with the Turiya, so all these things become secondary for you. As much as the dream becomes secondary, wakeful state also becomes secondary. Yes, right in front of you, you have seen in all these years of life, how many things that were there, part of your life, absolutely inseparable. That means that you just cannot leave that behind. But then how many things that we left and moved ahead? We have our own examples in front of us. When I was a child, there was something which was extraordinary. I can never think of that myself not being there with that. But then today it is not there. I don't even have memory of that. I've totally forgotten about it. I moved out of it. So that means today, whatever that is there is also going to move. All that what is there given in this life is also going to move by I go to the next life. I create a next establishment, everything that is there. So therefore, that this is something which has its character. But just because that I see that it is like a dream which is moving, like a leela, a very beautiful word leela, it does not mean I take it lightly. I take it very seriously. Like the way that it is always said that in Ramayana, I don't know whether real Rama really cried that bad or not, but actor Rama really cries when the Sita was taken away, much more louder than the real Rama. So actor is much more serious about the role that he plays. We should be like that, very seriously involved in this world, Advaita world. It's our own experience. So therefore, that these two things are there, which are supposed to be. Now, these are the two characters about this world outside. That's what it says in the 42nd sutra of Mandukya Karika in the fourth chapter. I skipped other things in between. Before that, even 38th sutra gives us. This is where my basis for that Swapna and Jagrata Sthana, Jagrata Sthiti and Swapna Sthiti, they're identical, very similar. Experience is the same. Experience is the same. When you look at, you take the position of Taijasa in the Swapna Sthana and the Vaishvana in the Jagrata Sthana. That's all. Here also that you talk to your friends, you talk to your colleagues, and then you share your ideas in the wakeful state. Same way in the dream also, you had your friends, you shared with them, you gave the ideas to them, they also gave the ideas. But that's only Swapna Purusha. That's not the wakeful state. That's why Yatha Swapne Mayo Jivo Jayate Priyate Cha. Like the way that comes and goes in the Jayate Priyate, when born and death. Tatha Jiva Avi Ami Sarve Bhavanti Na Bhavanti Cha. In this world also, Jiva Bhavanti Na Bhavanti. He is there, he happens, and it doesn't happen. He goes away. Very both these things are there in this world. Comes and goes. And once he goes, that you see that like the way that dream that you don't remember. How many dreams that you have seen, you don't even remember them. Same with the wakeful state also goes away. There's nobody to remember that. The birds are there, the trees are there, the sun comes and goes and all that. You were there under this, but in spite of it, when you have come, the trees were not elate. When you go away, the trees do not feel about that. It's like a flowing wind. It just flows away. Like this, life also goes away. But it is not a depressing statement. It's a statement which gives us an idea that is, we accept this world in this moment. That's all. Allow it to flow, allow it to grow, allow it to take its own course. Don't even try to hold it. And once you know that how not to hold on to that, every moment, every situation also, you can translate the same thing. Like I was a father when I'm with my son, but the moment I come out of it, I take some other role. I give up that father's role. I come out. That's only the role that we play. I am somebody behind all those things, like the way I change from the wakeful dream to deep sleep, the same way. Here also, one role to another role, I just come out of it. I see that that's a role, the role occupation, role activities, role norms, and all those things. I hold that. It's a wonderful thing for us to do that. Yatha swapne mayo jivo jove jayate mriyate च तथा जीवा अमी सर्वे bhavanti na bhavanti. That's what that ninth sutra says. This is the similarity between the Jagrat state and the Swapna sthiti. यथा निर्मितको देवो जीवो जायते विरते पिवा तथा जीवामि सर्वे bhavanti na bhavanti cha. Once again, he is expressing in a different way. Creation, the whole creation takes place in the wakeful state, the same way that in the dream state also, the whole creation takes place. And earlier sutras, in the third sutra, third chapter, he has given how the creation takes place. Like the way that here, the Jagrat world, there is all these five elements that we make out of it, earth, fire, water together, we create this body. How beautifully he says that all these five elements have got that five tanmatras. Tanmatras are their replica, their images, and their shadow, and that's there in the dream state. That shadow will put together and then we create an object there. Like the way here, a cosmic mind creates all those things. There, you are the cosmic mind, you create that. That's why here we call it as Vaishvanara. That is what is cosmic mind. And there also it is cosmic. Why he says cosmic mind, Vaishvanara is like, for example, your breath you take inside, you call it as breath. Outside it is supposed to be air. There is no difference between air and breath. Just because it's outside and inside, we have different names for that. The same way that the mind that you have, there is a cosmic mind inside. And that cosmic mind inside has created the whole image for you. All the elements are there, created an image necessary, so that you play with that in the dream state. So this, like the way that this world is there, but he says that this world is created by the cosmic mind. That dream world is also created by the cosmic mind. How many dreams are happened? We don't remember that. We don't even have any identification of that. So unfortunately, that this was used for the sake of rejecting the world. I am using this for the sake of accepting the world. Because you reject the dream, fine, and say the dream is not real. But you mean to say that you stop dreaming? You still dream. It's still there. So by rejecting, you are not getting anything out of it. But use that analogy to see that even this world, you don't have to reject it, it is there. This world is a wonderful place. Don't reject it. Only thing is that in this world, if you know that you are not going to reject it, you play like the way that you get the advantages, you get the joy out of it. You don't hold on to that. Let it flow. So this is what is the advantage that we have that. यदा नलभते हेतुः अनुत्तमात् अधम मध्यमान् तथा न जायते चिंत हेत्वाभाव फलं कृतः. This powerful head. सर्वे धर्मा श्रुत. हाँ. Now let me come to 42nd sutra, and he gives these two concepts that he uses. One is called as the upalambha, and the other is called as samachara. Two things that he calls it as upalambha and samachara. Upalambha is perception. It's available for perception. That's what is called as upalambha. That means we perceive in this world And then samachara is it has its own behavior and activity. And we connect these two things. And that's how the reality has been established in this. In the Upalambha Samachara, when it is reality. An object which has neither Upalambha, that means perception is not available, and then Samachara, that means to say its utility is also not there. 42nd Sutra it gives us. When these two things are not there, what is the object? This Swami Dayananda Saraswati used to say very beautifully that in Namarupa, he says that if there is an experience, there is something which is there in our experience, that is supposed to become the philosophy. What is not there in experience cannot become a philosophy. Like for he used to say, write an essay on Gagabubai. What is Gagabubai? Gagabubai is the son of Igabugi. Who is this Igabugi? Or something else. And none of these things are there in your experience. What is that? How you can relate it? In fact, that particular idea, that means Anubhavamiti Shastra. Shastra says, is there in your Anubhava, it becomes a Shastra. I cannot give something which is not there in your Anubhava. A Shastra. A Shastra will not support anything which is not there in your Anubhava. Shastra is something which is based on your Anubhava. Basically, the idea is that Shastra you create to see that this Anubhava can be utilized in a proper way. Like, for example, that an experience that is there, Chittavritti Nirodha becomes Tatha Drakshu Swarupa Avasthanam. I mean, this is something when your mind is quiet, you have become one with the Drashtu. This is what is the experience that we have. Everybody's common experience. That experience has become Yoga Shastra. See, Yoga Shastra has become after the experience that we have. The whole of Ramayana is there, and then Rama, Sita, and all that they exist. Therefore, we created a Shastra behind it, the feeling behind it, everything. So, like that experience is there, and then that becomes like a Shastra. What is not there in experience cannot become a Shastra. And it should be also, it's if it's Shastra, like for example, dream experience is for you, fine. The content dream comes is everybody's experience. Content of the dream is purely yours. It's not anybody else's. It's yours. It cannot be translated. Yes, I can believe that you have a dream because I also have a dream. But the content of your dream is different for you and different for me. We cannot translate that. So therefore, what is translatable, what is transferable, what is not transferable, we should be very clear about that. So a person says that I have pain in my stomach. I can accept that this pain is there in the stomach. But the reason why the pain has different kind of things. Different people have different kind. It's as simple as that. Similarly, like that, Anubhava is there, perception is there, and that's what is, he calls it as Upalambha. Upalambhat. That means, that is why he says that Upalambhat Samachara Asti Vastutva Vadina. Upalambha Samachara. That means what is the use of it, what is the purpose of it, what is the benefit out of it, and all those things around that qualities put together, it is called as Samachara. In fact, a very simple common word that he uses that somebody comes, you say, what is the Samachara? That means what are the things that happened around you? So this is what is basically the idea, that is what is around that. So an object is there, around it what is there. So it has its own purpose, idea. You can combine. So fire is there. We know naturally when fire is there, it burns something like that. So then there was a fire, I was saying, so what happened? What all the things that fire has devoured? What has eliminated? So therefore that means samachara is that. So therefore, Upalamphat Samachara Asti Vastu Vadina. That means say basically these are the two things important for the material people, material world outside. Vastu Vadinam is that one who accepts this world as real world. that means Vasavadinam. Then Jatisyut Deshita Buddhaihi Ajate Taratam Sata. So the by the wise for the sake of those who, from the facts of experience and repeated behavior, vouch for the existence of substantiality and who are ever afraid of the birthless entity. Actually, this is what I do not like it. I do not like accept it this way. There is an entity which is birthless, and they are afraid of that. That's what he says, but they are not. There's nothing like that. The fear of the Upanishad also puts that way. The fear of losing identity is the Atmanasharupam Bhayam Manyamana. And actually is uh, trying to substantiate that idea. In Taittiriya Upanishad, the mantra he says that Bhishasmad Vatapavate, Bhishodeti Suryaha, Bhishasmad Agnischa Indrascha, Mrityudhavati Pachama. The same way, another Upanishad mantra also is very similar to that. Bhidyat, Yogino Vipate Tasmat Abhaye Bhai Darshana. Like that also it comes. That means to say sun rises because of the fear. Wind blows because of the fear. Rainwater comes because of the fear. Like that he talks about fear. Now the Shankaracharya puts a question for that. What is the fear that sun rise? Why do you have to that? It's not that there is some sun is somebody sitting there and he has the fear. It's a figurative way of putting it. But the real idea is that if sun does not have that quality of rising every morning, you don't recognize to be sun. So therefore, that fear of losing identity, Atmanasharupam Bhayam, that means to say identification is gone. That's the reason why he continues to do the activity. Otherwise, you don't recognize. Wind does not blow, it does not recognize. Similarly, fire does not burn, you don't recognize that. The recognition will be lost. That is what is the fear of losing the recognition. So here he says that is the idea. Probably that is the idea. He says that the going into the unmanifest, that means to say going into this um, Advaita Sthiti, loses the identity. That's the reason why he has the fear. And that's what he comes to the idea here saying that existence of substantiality and who are ever afraid of the birthless entity. Birthless entity you will become afraid of. That's the reason why you don't become. This is one of the caution that he gives in the sadhana also. When you are really in a deep sadhana, when you're meditating, you touch that state of silence inside, deep inside silence. A blissful state of silence where the ego is dissolved. Ego completely gets dissolved. And in fact, in case of Ram Vivekananda also, it happened like that. A moment happened in such a way that in meditation, ego is completely dissolved. He was not existing as body. Nothing was there. The fear came up in him in such a way that he said, what happened to me? At that point of time, actually, Thakur, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, touches on his forehead. Suddenly he goes into that state. He said, what are you doing to me? Where am I? What is gone? He immediately brought him back and he said, look, you see, your losing identity is something which is there and which is already there. I just wanted to test that experience is there. And you will get this experience only when you actually finish all the work on this earth. Before going that, you have that Advaita experience. Ultimately, Vivekananda had that Advaita experience. Fear of losing identity is something which is, when you are in meditation also many times, when you touch that quiet state in meditation, suddenly a fear comes. What am I doing? What's happened? Come out of it. The fear of losing identity. That's what he says, that because of which that you come out of meditation. Whereas the only reason, very place where you lose the identity, and then that's a blissful state, is in the deep sleep state. Dreamless sleep state is a state where is the identity? You are not there. But then you have that experience of Advaita Sthiti, pure Advaita Sthiti. That's why he says that dreamless sleep state is like Turiya. Only thing is here, The vasanas are there, samskaras there in the seed form, they come up. Whereas in the turiya sthiti, dagdha bija vatu, they are not there anymore in the form of bija, they don't sprout. That's the difference. Similar kind of an experience we have in the bhakti also. Bhakti is much more profound that way because the whole practice of bhakti is to dissolve you, dissolve the I. Ego itself you dissolve. That's why you look at the bhaktas. There is no ego at all. That's why they are blissful. They are identified with the bliss, but at the same time, there is no ego in that. That's an advantage that is there in the bhakti sadhana. Dvaita sadhana is looked at that way to see that they become kaivalya, kevala. Then this both these things, upalabdha and then samachara, both things are completely dropped. Because upalabdha is the experiencer and samachara is the activity. It because that I is there, these two things are there. When these two things are not there, everything is the same one single unit. And that's what is Advaita Sthiti. So bhakti is that way, or the Dvaita Sthiti is that way helping us to go towards dissolving the self. I surrender. That's why there are several stages in the bhakta that we have. And these stages are like, uh, in Dvaita philosophy, it is said that uh, sa, samipya, you come closer to God, and then sayujya, and then Sanidhya in his close, and then Sayujya, and finally becomes Sarupya. You become one with that. You are not there, only he is there. These are the stages in bhakti one reaches so that he can go towards become Advaita Sthiti, and that's the experience that you have. So, this is what Upalambdha, Samachara, several sutras are there 42nd, 43rd, 44th. 45th, he comes to the idea of consciousness, saying that Jatyabhasam Chalabhasam Vatsvabhasam Tathaivacha Ajachalam Avastutvam Vijnanam Shantamadvayam. If the consciousness, breathless, motionless, and non material as well as tranquil and non dual, that has a semblance of birth, appears to move and simulate the substance, possibilities of the cultures, एवं न जायते म्रियते धर्मा अजाः स्मृताः एवमेवा विजानन्तो न पतन्ति विपर्यते. So then he comes to that level where in Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, न जायते म्रियते वाकजाति नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजं नित्य शाश्वतोयं पुराणः. What Krishna says that it's not for about Brahman, he is talking about individual. Because the battlefield, Arjuna's question was that I kill all these people. He says, Najayate Mriyate, there is nothing which is death, which is born, which is die. Nothing you can do it. They're already there. So, Najayate Mriyate Vakajachit. Evam Najayate Chittam Evam Dharma Ajaha Smrutaha. There is no question of the consciousness has no birth, thus as the souls, considering to be birthless. Evameva vijaranto na patante viparyate. Those who know this indeed do not fall into the calamity. Calamity is that, oh, death will occur. And that simpler way is said that what is to be, what is born will die. That's what Krishna says. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityuko. What is not born will not die. Look at the earlier sutra that we have done. Consciousness is something which is birthless. So therefore it is deathless also. And that's what is Turiya, and you are that Turiya, or you are that Brahman, Jivatma is that Brahman. That's why basically that this idea of why you do all this analysis, understanding. In my view, it is one thing is that most important aspect of our life is the death. And most important step in the life also is death. When you are born, guaranteed about the death. And that death is something that we are most frightened about. And the more and more that we identify ourselves with objects, the more and more that we are extending our fear of death. If I have hundreds of items that are there, hundreds of fear for the death will be there. Aldous Huxley was supposed to be one person who has gathered so many artifacts, so many things, so many books and all that. In fact, his books are very good. One of the philosophical books and all that. In California, he was there. He had huge collection of all those things that were there. Everybody knows about it in California. And then he went away somewhere. And by the time he came back, in the fire, that whole thing got gutted. Everything was burnt into ashes. Everybody is feeling that Aldous Huxley will come back and see all this ruin that happened. Those days, all these phones were not there. Therefore, he would come and see that all these things are burnt. His precious collections, precious items, and then books and all those things. Huge collection that was there. He may feel very sad. He will be heartbroken. Maybe he will die, heart attack. All that they were thinking, that he came, looked at the whole thing, laughed. I'm glad that everything burnt off because now I don't have any more burden. Everything is finished. Now I don't have any burden, anything. That was the real Vedanta. That was the real philosopher. Everything that's there which we think that we are identified with that, then there is nothing that is there existing. In fact, this is what Shastra also says, that we identify with the object. In fact, it's said that in Pradharnika Upanishad, Navare patyu kamaya patipriyam bhavati, atmanastu kamaya patipriyam bhavati. Navare putrasya kamaya putra priyam bhavati, atmanastu kamaya putra priyam bhavati. What happens is, it's not the question of that putrasya kamaya. It's not that I'm liking my son, but I have my investment in my son, and that is going to die. That's going to fade away. That's what is atmanastu kamaya putra priyam. For that, I like it. Like, for example, if my son is somebody who is not at all according to my image of a son, then where is the question of my liking him? Atmanstu kamaya putra priyam bhavati. My son is because I put my investment, my liking, my way of being. That's what is ultimately it is I like it. Similarly, he goes on 2 pages in Vrindavan Upanishad. Navare patyuk kamaya patiprem atmanastu kamaya navare putrasya kamaya navare this kamaya that kamaya, like that. He says finally he says that this book you are reading, Upanishad you are reading, not because that you are interested in the Upanishad, because Upanishad says something that you like it. Navare Vedanam Kamaya Veda Priyam Bhavati Atmanastu Kamaya. Ultimately, it is me that's important. So, this me, if I extend it much more, many more things, then that bigger in me that I create, the greater is my suffering, greater my giving up. So, that is why the fall of me is the question, is the fear that we have. The fear is not about the world outside, losing anything, but me investment that is there. We would like to have that investment. And that's the reason why we fall. And we would like to see, enjoy that investment. You know, uh, there's one, have you heard of this book called as the Wonders, World Wonders? Rupert Sheldrake has written that. And he collected all over the world what are the things which are very amusing items and all that. He collected all that data. Something like that. He's somewhere in USA, but then he said there is one tree which has got 4 branches, which is a coconut tree which has got 4 branches. You cannot find coconut tree branches, but here, for then somebody came to verify that he found it. So it was like that. All this kind of things he collected. So he had all strange ideas, strange collections and all. He wanted to see that how many people would really like him because he has become very popular, famous. How famous he was, he wanted to see that. So one day he made a very practical joke. He said that headlines in the newspaper that he gave Rupert Woodruff died. So it's big news. And then how many people played condolences meetings and this and that in the next 2 days? He looked at all those things. He was so happy, so many people liked him. He was still alive. So we all look for how much that we identify ourselves with. This, that, that. The less we identify ourselves with that, even in the way, in the living state, can we de-identify ourselves with that? That's what in the morning, in the beginning of the sutra, that says, how to come out to the center. Basically, don't identify with the outside. That's what is the center. Outside, there may be several things, but don't identify with that. That's what is the idea we get into. The whole idea is to get back to that center is supposed to be Turiya Sthiti. The center is supposed to be Atma Sthiti. Atma is not touched by any of these things that are there. It's like the way the clouds cannot cloud the sky. Atma cannot be touched by that. That's what is the message of this Mandukya Karika that we have seen. And I said about the center and about the periphery. The periphery doesn't exist, therefore, that you identify with that periphery, be in the center. But then, how the periphery is created? When I say it is illusion, what way the illusion is created? It is given by very beautiful way. That's what the title of this particular chapter, Alata Shanti Prakaranam. That means basically you take a fireball tied to a rope, rotate it, and you see the fire circle. Circle doesn't exist by itself. Circle is created because of some image that you created. So that's how basically this world is like a fireball. Is there a way that you can come out of this concept of getting caught up in that fireball? Is what is Alata Shanti. And that's the ultimate way of going towards Turiya Sthiti. That's what is Mandukya Karika. So I'll stop it here. Last class next week that we have, few ideas about Alata Shanti I'll give. So many sutras are there. I will not get into that sutras, but tell you the basic gist of it. We'll stop it here. Om Tat Sat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Raghuramji, when we say that the akara represents the wakeful state, then the ukara dream state, and the
Yeah,
so when we chant Om, are we getting into each of these states and coming out?
transcending. Yes, each of the states we are transcending them to go to that silence which is supposed to be Turiya. That's how every time you chant Om, you are touching Turiya. There's no doubt about it. But how much that we are staying there is an important thing.
Okay. And when we say that the wakeful state and the dream state are very similar,
Yeah,
the dream, when we become the witness of what is happening in a dream,
yeah,
we don't have any control over what is
yes,
happening in the
yes,
dream.
right.
But in the wakeful state,
Uh,
also, does it mean that we don't have any control over what is happening in our life, or we have control and
we don't have any control actually. In fact, the moment you think that you are controlling it, you are not a witness anymore. You
okay,
are a Vaishwanara, part of the world outside. So all that chemistry of the world outside
whatever?
works on you. All the emotions work on you. You have no control.
Actually, there is no control even in the wakeful state.
Yes. What is there for you to control? It's a flow.
Maybe I am deciding the direction of the flow. No, it is not
No.
happening that.
See, that means to say you are identifying yourself with intellect. Even that's also not you. Therefore, you are not deciding. Intellect is deciding. Okay, decides.
Okay.
Don't identify with the intellect. In fact, that's why I said that intellect is the most wonderful tool that we have. The moment I say tool, which means I am not that. It's deciding. Let it decide. That's the reason why, what, normally, and somebody is there to use the intellect to decide. Unless it is very critical, I don't use my intellect. I say, okay, you decide. I'm okay with that. I don't have to decide.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Raghuram.
You're welcome.
Ramji,
Yeah.
so that means that when I'm identifying, I'm Vaishwanara, otherwise I'm Turiya. Same way, matlab
Yeah.
Vaishwan,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
all these three. And
You are
when I'm
only
identifying in the dream state, I'm that Tejasa, otherwise
Tejas.
I'm Turiya.
You are Turiya.
Matlab there is no Turiya separately. Actually, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
But
Yes.
yeah, when I'm identifying, it's given just a different
Yes.
name for that
Right.
identification.
Right. So Vaishwanara is the one who deals with the world outside. Turiya himself doesn't deal with. He has no purpose in the world outside.
So
Vaishwanara
I have to
deals with
learn to be Turiya, matlab with
that.
practice.
Yes. Right.
Okay, thank you, sir. It's
The
very,
role that is
been
given
very.
to you is Vaishwanara. Like, for example, you are given a role to play Rama. And tomorrow that Ravana is absent, so therefore you play the role of Ravana. That's okay. You have nothing to do with that. You are Turiya.
So, but while interacting with the outside world, to
Yeah.
some extent, I have to become Vaishwanara, right?
Oh, yeah, you have to. Oh, Vaishwanan.
Then
You
come
see,
back to Turiya.
actually,
It's like that Chittavrittis only, coming back to the center
right.
and going in. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And you will be much more effective when you are Turiya and become Vaishwanara only for that moment, for that act. You know, it was so wonderful. I had one chief engineer who was a Muslim, and he retired, handed over the charge to the next chief engineer. Immediately he came out and asked him, please take your seat. And he sat, can I sit in the chair opposite to him? He gave him, his junior, he gave him the charge of chief engineer. He came out and said, he requested him, asked him, can you permit me to sit in the chair? Wow, somebody could become instantly like that. Give up. He was a Muslim chief engineer who was there. I really liked him very much.
I think this is what is that let go concept, right?
Yes, it's actually let go concept.
I'm reading that book actually. It's very nice.
Mm, right.